Hey, all Adventure Nerds here. This is part 1 of my new video series. How to bring the out of your Hyper 7. Now this is an episode. This is episode 1. And by episode, it means take your shoes off, kick back, get your popcorn, get your favorite adult beverage, your favorite kid beverage. It doesn't matter. If you're a kid, you only drink those kid beverages now. Enjoy the video series, because what I'm going to do is take you through some of the things that I've done with my Hyper 7 and continue to do to this day in hopes that you might be able to gain a little bit of insight and maybe put your own stamp on your Hyper 7. If anything, the intent is to show you what is possible. Now, although it's 9:30 in the morning, my speech is slurred, I'm sure. I haven't started drinking yet. That usually starts around 10:30, 11 in the morning. I've been awake all night is all that is. So forgive me if I'm a little bit off. I'm more goofy than normal. That's just how I'm going to roll in this video, so there's your answer for that. So this whole series, I don't know how many videos it's going to be, but it's going to be fairly in-depth, I think. Even if you don't have a Hyper 7, hey, you might get something out of it, who knows. I'm going to go through, and every gallon or so I do what they call a refresh on my Hyper 7. All my vehicles, actually. And this time I decided I'm going to roll film as I do it so you can see every component. And I'm going to talk about, oh, okay, you want to get busy with your Hyper 7, here's some ideas. Because we have a whole lot of Hyper 7 viewers. Now, you looked at the title of this video and it was called Hyper 7 versus the Hyper SS. What's the deal with that? I'm a data guy, so I like to glean data from various systems as I can, when I can. YouTube, they won't give me the raw data, so I'm kind of limited to their interfaces, but I was able to get enough information to determine over the past 3 months, I've been asked 21 times, what do I recommend, the Hyper 7 or the Hyper SS? 21 times over the past 3 months. Prior to that, for a while, it was really getting, I don't mind that question. It's something, it's why I do videos, right? But I get it all the time. And my short answer is this. Okay, if I were to recommend the Hyper SS over the Hyper 7, why in the hell are you seeing Hyper 7 videos on my channel? Why in the hell are you looking at a Hyper 7 and not a Hyper SS? There's your answer, okay? So I'm not here to dismiss the Hyper SS. In fact, in this video, what I'm going to do is talk about the differences between the two. I'll tell you this. Most of the people that ask that question, they're new. Stupid ass newbies, come on. Step into me like that. You don't talk to an expert like me, all right, until I tell you you can talk to me. No, I'm kidding, guys. But they are mainly new. And for what it's worth, believe it, don't believe it, it's one of these things people don't want to believe, but in the end they're going to find out. If you were to take a Hyper 7 out, take a Hyper SS out, and have the same cover on it and not really know the difference, you wouldn't know the difference. You would not know the difference. So you're not going to tell the difference initially. If we were to put it in the hands of someone that does have touch, that does have feel, that is a pro, like Adam Drake, Jared Tebow, Ty Tessman, Ryan Mayfield, these guys, what I think they would say, let's say we give them each vehicle to SS and Hyper 7 to enter a race. I think the feedback would be, the Hyper SS felt better, but the Hyper 7 finished the race. That's what's up. Durability is the difference between the two, in my opinion. We're going to talk about everything here in detail, so don't worry, but at the end of the day, that's why, well, it's one of the many reasons, and still not even the top reason, that I would recommend the Hyper 7. Now, we have to define durability first and foremost, because it is subjective. To me, okay, we pretty much will do what we want, when we want, and for how long we want with our vehicles, and that's durability. Now, some people I've seen videos of them driving in a parking lot, and I kid you not, they have extreme bashing, you know, in the title, and that's cool. If to them that's extreme bashing, hey, more power to you, right? It's doing what they want it to do, and hopefully for as long as they want it to do it. For me, durability would be if I were to do anything more, okay, more thrilling with it, more on the edge type thing, it would be considered abuse. That's durability. Anything more would be abuse. As an example, I could pick this Hyper 7 up and just slam it on the ground right here and go, hey man, look how tough it is. But that's not what the vehicle's intended to do. And I've seen people do that. I saw a video once, the guy was, and it was a Hyper 7 too, made me sick. He was jumping it, you know, on concrete, not even trying to land it right and stuff. Then at one point, you know, he ran over and like kicked it, and I'm just, oh man, look how tough it is. Just like, you know, so. Anyways, let's talk about differences, because I think the Hyper SS on paper, it's beautiful. If someone were to approach me and say, John, we want you to design a next-gen Hyper 7, you know, version 2 type thing. Many of the items that are employed on the Hyper SS are things that I would say, yeah, let's do. This is what I want to do. However, I think that it comes down to the parts and the quality of it. I have a Hyper SS. You see, you guys don't know this, but I do. I just have to kind of build it because I have all the Hyper SS parts, except for the chassis. And I know they don't share this long chassis. I don't think they even share chassis, but I have the parts, the Delta. And I'm scared to put them on. It's that bad. Because just I don't want to say it's Red Cat-like, but I don't trust it. Now forever, my view of Hobeo was that all of their parts are Mugen-like. Meaning that, excuse me, I've got the hiccups. Meaning that they're top quality. Because all I knew was Hyper 7 and Hobeo. However, I found out that's not the case. So basically, from my perspective, the Hyper 7 Hobeo parts are the best parts that Hobeo has to offer, if that makes sense, because they do have a lower tier, you know, vertical, I guess, with respect to their parts. So really, the biggest differences are, first and foremost, would be the shocks. Okay, Hyper SS uses 17 millimeter big bore. The Hyper 7 uses 14 millimeter shocks and 12 millimeter. I've got both. But of course, you can see here I'm running 17 millimeter in the front. These are Mugen MBX 6R shocks. And on that note, do you like getting ripped off? Because if you like getting ripped off, I've got a tip for you. I got something you can do. Go buy yourself from a chop shop some of the 17 millimeter Hyper SS shocks. And there you go. You can thank me later. You've been ripped off. I've seen them priced higher than you could get, like some Kyosho MP9 shocks or whatever would be the shocks off of the you know, considered the absolute best world-class vehicle. The shocks off of that would be less. So shocks are shocks are shocks. The 17 millimeter Hobeo shocks are at best, right? In my opinion again. So, I mean, if you want to do the 17 millimeter shocks, which there are advantages to, you have to be very careful. When we get to this stage, we'll talk about it. You don't just buy a pair of Mugen and put them on there, trust me. But again, if you're going to do it right. The next big difference between the two is the steering and suspension type. And that is, the Hyper SS utilizes a kingpin suspension versus a C-hub or a pillow ball, which is what the Hyper 7 offers. So in other words, I've got the ability to change from C-hub to pillow ball in the front and or the rear. I like the idea of a kingpin, and it's definitely needed for Hyper 7 owners that have had one for a long time. You know what I'm talking about with the Ackerman plate and the top bar up here in the front. Upper arms, there can be issues if you know, you don't have it set up right. You have too much down travel, you can find some problems, things like that. And that's what they did. They fixed it. So they said, okay, well, let's just go with the kingpin. So where a C-hub, you typically have a knuckle and you've got a carrier that is secured by bushings up and, you know, the top and bottom with a screw going through the bushings into the knuckles. With kingpin, what you have is you have a spindle and a carrier, okay? And then inside of the spindles, you have kingpins, like such. Right here would be the kingpin. So Losi is a good example of that. And they're secured by a set screw right here. The other difference is in the steering. The SS utilizes a drag link, okay, and I'll show you. This here is actually the steering assembly from a Hyper SS. And you can see here, here's the top plate. It's pretty cheap plastic, it feels like it anyways. The steering post, I'll get into that later, but what happens is the tie rods, the steering rods, are secured to the actual bell crank themselves, and this drag link is secured to the bell cranks. Okay? Now, Hyper 7, what happens is you have an Ackerman plate that is secured to the bell crank, servo saver bell crank, and the steering rods are tied to that. So the difference is, see, the steering rod here goes onto the plate itself, whereas in this design, the steering rods would go into the actual bell cranks. Once again, just like Losi. That solves a lot of the mystery that's up front here. You know, just with pillow ball, or just like with pillow ball, if I were to take this, drive it with C-hub for 10 times, then drive it for pillow ball for 10 times, I would be able to say something's different, but I doubt I'd be able to say, you know what, you switch from C-hub to pillow ball in the front. Not my lifetime, I won't. Never. So it really comes down to maintenance at this point and feel. You know, because I'll definitely be able to tell you, I like the first one better. Maybe it was C-hub. You know, I like that better. I didn't know what was different, right? So, me personally, I find kingpin pretty aggressive as far as, you know, its steering. But again, that's just a matter of feel. I can easily implement kingpin on here, and I'm going to, using some of these SS parts, which would give me all 3 suspension types available anytime I want. Which is something else I want to touch on in this video, is that your Hyper 7 is going to look different than mine, because mine is made up of each of the versions. So with the Hyper 7 lineup, it's kind of confusing, but this vehicle is made up of parts from Hyper 7 Pro, Hyper 7 PBS, Hyper 7 TQ Sport, and the Hyper 7 PCR Pro. I basically have all the versions, and I put the best parts in. And I still got a long ways to go, and that's what we're going to be doing in this series as a whole. And I have a little bit of SS sprinkled in it, or I'm going to have a little bit of SS. So, again, I'm certainly not dismissing the SS. Hey, take the SS over any other ready to run if you're not going to get the Hyper 7, in my opinion. Absolutely. The next big thing would be the fuel tank is larger. The body is a little bit different. You know, of course, like the tires and stuff, and that's all interchangeable. And that's it. The only thing I would have liked to see employed is a forward battery mount. Something I still can do on here. But anyways, the shock towers are different. I don't think, you know, from there it's just a matter of the biggest reason. The number one reason that I would, recommend the Hyper 7 over the Hyper SS is you look at the two vehicles, okay? You take everything into consideration. One of them is a Hyper 7, the other one isn't a Hyper 7. That's the number one reason.